Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of Dimes, the college basketball podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me is Jamie Shaw. Jamie, how are you doing today?
Matthew, man, it's good. It's good. We're sitting here right in that transition phase. Obviously, football season started, but the weather transition is going. I'm in the Carolinas. I know you're down south too. It's been in the 90s. Now all of a sudden we're transitioning toward the 80s. Hopefully,
Yes,
hitting the 70s pretty soon, and that's just the sweet spot.
perfect. This is like I said, this is our first episode of this college basketball podcast. Jamie is a senior national recruiting analyst for Rivals and does NBA draft and transfer portal for On3. I cover LSU for On3 and Rivals, while also doing college basketball and recruiting stuff as well on the side. I also had a Texas college basketball podcast for Dave Campbell's out in Texas, which was awesome. But starting this up, and I'm excited for it. And yeah, talked to Jamie about what was it 2 months ago. I was like, hey, let's, if you wanted to start the podcast and see how this goes, we can just talk some ball and have some fun with this. So, Jamie, I appreciate you making this happen, and we can have some fun with this twice a week.
Man, basketball conversation is always exciting. So I'm here for it. I'm ready to get some reps in and see how things go.
Yeah, well, let's jump right to it. Let's start with recruiting, because obviously with your pedigree and what you do for Rivals and being the national recruiting analyst, I did want to start with recruiting and kind of start our foundation there before we get too deep into all the teams. And we got 2 months to talk about all these teams still. So let's start with Tony Bryant committing to Missouri here, the number 33 player on Rivals, the number 2 player in Florida, a 6'10" power forward. I was able to watch a little bit of tape on him, but I'll throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on him, and what is Missouri getting in Tony Bryant?
Well, it's a huge get for Missouri. I mean, Dennis Gates here, he's on fire right now. He's already got Jason Crow in the fold for this class, and now he's get a big recruiting win getting Tony Bryant. You know, you have schools he's going up against NC States of the world and other heavy hitters within the industry. As you said, number 33 overall player within the class, a power forward center. He had a huge year this past year, really elevated his stock through the last high school basketball season, then played this summer Trey Man Elite team on the Puma Pro 16 circuit. He's a guy who's continually seen his stock rise throughout the process. 6'10", the athleticism is really the calling card. You see a guy that's that size that moves in the way that he does, and that's super unique. Obviously, looking at the transfer portal this past cycle, you see the value the center position has, especially a center that can consistently produce and that you can hang your hat on. Well, looking at Tony Bryant, he's a guy that has the traits that you mark off, that you enjoy, that you appreciate at that level. The upside on defense, especially switchability, the way he moves, the fluidity. He's got some athletic pop to him as well. Just kind of overall encompassing that. And the fit that he has at Missouri is very intriguing. Obviously, you see Missouri that wants to play up tempo. They want to press. They want to trap. They want to switch.
Yep.
And they want to get out and run. And that kind of fits exactly what Tony Bryant does to a T. Very good get for Dennis Gates. Very good for him to lock it up early. Obviously, we have a couple more months here to go until signing day and everything. But I mean, so far, Dennis Gates is sitting there with Missouri having Jason Crow and Tony Bryant in tow. Pretty good haul for the Tigers.
Yeah. I know we're not talking about Jason Crow here, but yeah, Jason Crow is he is a bucket. He is incredible to watch. I saw him at the week before Peach Jam over in Atlanta. Yeah, he's incredible. And Tony Bryant, like you said, I think you summed it up well. The athleticism at the 5 spot, I think at 6'10", real rim runner, real rim protector. It's huge for what Missouri wants to do. Let's jump to Chris Washington committing to Alabama, 6'8", small forward. Numbers 26 players in Rivals, another Florida guy, the number 1 player in Florida. Was able to watch a little bit of his stuff. What are your thoughts on Chris Washington to the Tide?
With him, it's upside. There's a considerable upside when it comes to fluidity. You heard me talk about it with Tony Bryant. Here with Chris Washington, the athletic fluidity he has unbelievable length.
Yes.
He's got loose hips. He's able to switch and slide within a possession. He's able to guard on the perimeter, switch down, do a little bit of stuff on the block, protect the rim a little bit off ball, and do all that. Defensively, his upside is one of the top prospects defensively in this class. Now, he's a little bit raw when it comes to his skill set. That might be because he's so unique. 6'8", 6'9", long, big guy with perimeter skills. Now, for him moving forward on the offensive side, especially, it's about putting it all together. It's about finding his balance points. It's about getting his footwork together. It's about learning his spots and kind of streamlining his game to getting the most out of it so he can reach the high ceiling that he has. Defensively, however, like I said, he might be a day one contributor. Putting it together on the offensive end with a considerable upside. He checks a lot of boxes that you're looking for at the highest level of the game when it comes to positional fluidity, when it comes to the versatility within what he has. Now it's all about piecing all of that together, getting the reps in, and continuing to grow his game toward the considerable ceiling that he has.
Yeah, I think Raw offensively is a good way to describe it. But then you see the flashes. You
Yeah.
see his ability to kind of isolate at times. He can rise up over defenders really, really well. And he has some nice touch, I think, around the rim and in floater range to a degree. So it's gonna be interesting to see him develop on that end. But like you
And
said,
I don't want it to think
defensively,
like he's a lost cause right now, like Raw
no,
is,
no,
is in
yeah,
like all that, because he did produce. He played on the Under Armour circuit this summer with B Mays, and he produced
yeah.
good numbers, and the flashes were unreal. The highlights that you could put together of what he did was almost jaw dropping. Some of the dunks he had taken off from outside the paint, finishing above the rim, getting out in transition, quickly turning defense into offense. There's a lot of stuff there to build upon. So it's not like it's a long pathway to get there. Now it's just all about just tightening, fine tuning what he has already, and going there. I think you nailed that. The flashes are considerable.
Yeah, it's definitely exciting for Nate Oates and Alabama. And the third commitment we wanted to talk about here, Jason Singleton to Harvard, 6'4" point guard, the number 117 player on Rivals, and the number 17 point guard in the country. Rivals is higher on him than the other outlets here. What have you seen from Singleton, and what is Harvard getting here?
Well, it's interesting to see him. I mean, I was sitting there at Peach Jam and schools like Ohio State, and you had high majors that were sitting there watching him, tracking him, and recruiting him and everything. And for him to go to Harvard happened a couple of years ago. Robert Hinton um, committed to Harvard as well. Had a very good freshman year this past season. Now he's coming back this year for to see how he continues to progress. Jason Singleton, his thing is on the defensive end. He's one of the better perimeter defenders, especially on ball within the class. He's able to switch between multiple perimeter positions on the defensive end of the floor, getting in the passing lanes. He's aggressive. He's very intuitive, but he really slides his feet, and he's got great anticipation on that end of the floor. Defensively, he really pressures the ball. He really puts pressure on the opposing team, and that's kind of where his game really stood out. That's what took him from being – he wasn't even on the EYBL circuit. He was on the EYCL circuit.
Mm-hmm.
That's what got the high major programs in the gym, was the defensive side of the ball. And then he continued to show progression with his offensive game. He's I'm not necessarily sure point guard is the proper position for him. He's probably more of an off-ball type of guy, but he shows some comfort on the ball as well. The jump shot coming around, getting to his spots is coming around. He's got some mid-range stuff and everything also. But his ability to really heat up the ball, really play versatile defense on the perimeter is really the calling card and what got him into the rankings.
Yeah.
And really turned the eyes of the high major stuff. It's just really neat to see this cycle. We're seeing a lot of it. I wrote about it in an article yesterday. We're seeing mid-major programs such as Harvard. VCU's got a couple of them. You have Loyola Chicago in the mix, getting these Rivals 150 guys during this cycle. And it's really good to see within the parity of college basketball as to how that looks moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you see it on the football side a little bit the past couple years where it started to, you've seen some, I don't want to say random, but some mid-major schools, G5 schools, kind of pick up on some of these like top, like you said, top 100, top 150 players. And then in basketball, feel like you're starting to see it a bit more as well.
Mm-hmm.
Even just non-powerhouse basketball schools starting to get a couple commits here and there. So
BYU got the number one guy last year.
yeah, that's there you go. There you go. We just talked about Missouri getting, I now have two top 30 guys, and Missouri's obviously has a basketball history, but the way that these teams are continuing to recruit in this era is
100%.
very interesting. All right, there's the recruiting side. Let's talk. So next up, I wanted to talk about the transfer portal moves that we were very, very high on. I'm glad we're doing this now because trying to assess the transfer portal while the transfer portal is happening is just chaos to me. So we're here doing this September 9th, and I wanted to just do our favorite transfer portal moves. It's our first episode, just get it out the way, just everything, what we liked from the transfer portal and the favorite moves we had in terms of players to teams. I have three, so we can go kind of back and forth here. I'll start it off. Rob Wright to BYU, and I understand it came. What did I don't remember what the final number ended up being. I think 3 million for Rob Wright to get to BYU. It was such a hit for Baylor, and like I said, I did a Texas basketball podcast the last 4 years, 3 4 years, and so it's like we were always in tune with Baylor fans because something was always happening to them. Scott Drew to Kentucky, now Rob Wright. Um, this was the one in Baylor's rebuild that they really felt like hurt. This was the one. It's like, damn, if we could have kept Rob Wright and changed everybody else, it would have been great. Rob Wright goes to BYU, 11.5 points per game, 4 assists, 35% from three as a freshman, and someone who I think pretty quickly into the season was the better option for them over Jeremy Roach. Not saying Jeremy Roach was bad, but I think Rob Wright just gave them that pop that they needed next to VJ and that team. So he goes to BYU. Obviously, AJ DeBonsta. I mean, they've reloaded that team very, very well, and I'm excited to see what it looks like. But now you have a point guard in Rob Wright that can handle it, can feel like facilitate things, doesn't have to force things, has experience playing next to an uber talented wing. I just think this is like a perfect fit for what they have at BYU. And if you have the money, go get a point guard that can sure things up and make life easier for your number one overall prospect that's coming in.
No, for sure. And you look at Rob Wright, kind of to piggyback on you. I mean, he was the point guard for that Montverde team that had Cooper
Yes.
Flagg and Liam McNeely and all that stuff. He goes to Baylor last year, helps lead them into an NCAA tournament. And then this next year coming in with AJ Dibansa, they also have Richie coming back on the wing as well, who's the sixth man of the year last year, I believe, in the league, and then also Kebakita at the four man. So there's depth there, there's shooting, and there's a whole bunch of stuff and really traditional positional stuff. This is also coming off of a Elite Eight run for BYU that they had last year. Very exciting season, put guys in the NBA draft and all that too. So Rob Wright kind of seems to be, to your point, a very, very central piece to the future of what BYU basketball has going and the excitement that's out there in Utah.
Yeah. Who you got?
The first one for me that I'm looking at is Boogie Fland. Going to Florida, I've said this before, they had almost the perfect basketball roster last year with the three guards and the four bigs that they had rotating in. Also, ended up off of those guards, Walter Clayton, you had Will Richard, you had Elijah Martin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they all left. And then obviously Denzel Aberdeen, who was the fourth guard, left as well. Huge gaping hole in the backcourt. All four bigs returned. Defending national champions. You bring in Boogie Fland, former McDonald's All-American, top 20 player in the industry. He averaged 13.5 and 5.1 last year at Arkansas. But I believe by all accounts, that freshman season was one he would like to have back. Obviously, there's injury involved there. There's some up and down within the season, is getting acclimated to the college game and everything. This is year two. It's almost a reclamation project. He's coming in now. He's been, USA basketball guy. He's been McDonald's All-American. He's had success. He's seen success his entire life. Last year, a little bit of adversity. Now he's coming in to play point guard for the defending national champions. There's going to be a lot of eyes on him. And if anything that I've known with Boogie in the past, of covering him since through high school, freshman year, sophomore year, all that type of stuff, he loves the spotlight. He's at his best when the spotlight's on. He's got a lot of skill and a lot of tools, very good hands in the open floor. He's a very good shooter. As you can see from the 5.1 assists last year, gets the team into plays and all that. As you know, in college basketball, they talk about year one to year two step. I'm eager to see what that step looks like for Boogie Fland as he steps into the spotlight with the expectations that Florida has. I mean, Florida's pretty universally right now, even after losing their entire backcourt, their top four guys in the backcourt, they're still being talked about as a top 5 or 10 team within the country this upcoming season. A lot of that's going to be on Boogie Fland. There's going to be a lot of eyes on Boogie Fland, and I'm very eager to see what that ends up looking like.
Yeah, he's also someone I think got better, like Arkansas, got better as the year went on and closed out the year really strong. So I'm interested to see with him, Xavier Lee as well from Princeton, the other transfer guard that they have. So they've reloaded. Like you said, they have the front court back. That's going to be tough on both sides for opposing teams. But Boogie Fland is definitely the guy that the past 2 years, just watching him, just has always stood out to me like that. If he puts it together, Florida's going to be fine. Florida will be able to score the ball.
Lots of tools.
My next pick, Andre Stojakovic from Cal to Illinois. This is a guy who the scoring upside here on the wing is just so palpable. I'm interested to see him do it on an actual, no offense to Cal and Stanford, year one. Illinois here, I just want to see him in this level of competition at the highest, in the Big Ten, really produce here. Average 18 points per game last year, 5 boards, 2 assists. Only shot 32% from 3, but I think some of that was having to create for himself in a lot of ways. You hope with Illinois this year that a lot is taken off his plate, and that is the expectation. But yeah, I just think you plug him into what you have at Illinois with Boswell, with Avicic, and I think you have a really, really strong core to help supplement Stojakovic to where he doesn't have to average 18 a game. He can average 14 a game on efficient numbers, and I think you're looking at a really, really good player, potentially all Big Ten player if everything goes right for him at Illinois.
Yeah, the interesting thing with Illinois is kind of the transition Brad Underwood has made over these last couple of years in his offense. Now, all of a sudden, things used to get bogged down a little bit and all that. Now they're playing with a lot of space. You look at the makeup of this team this year, there's going to be a lot of space. There's going to be a lot of pace to it. There's going to be some shooting and some playmaking around all of the positions and stuff, and they're going to have depth. This lineup, while Stojakovic might not necessarily put up the numbers that he did, the efficiency will probably come together more because there's going to be more spacing and there's going to be more tailored for him to get clean shots, clean looks at the basket within this offense and flow of it. Another team, I'm very interested to see what it looks like because it seems like there's been a shift in the Illinois over this last couple of years, and it seems like they're on an upward trajectory right now.
All right, who do you got?
My second one, Yaxel Lindenberg. He was one of the top prospects coming out of the transfer portal. Going to Michigan, got it done pretty quickly. Michigan did after averaging 17, 11, and 4 assists this past season. Such a unique player. You see the 11 rebounds per game, and you see how he plays and everything. But then you look at the processing aspect, ball in hand decision making that he has within the flow of the offense. Obviously, Michigan by the end of the year last year was super unique in what they were doing with Danny Wolf and how they were playing their bigs this past season. Yaxel Lindenberg isn't Danny Wolf. Obviously, Danny Wolf wasn't Danny Wolf at Yale either. All of a sudden, he went to Dusty May and unlocked an entirely new being. So possibly with Yaxel, but we haven't seen the Danny Wolf type stuff with Yaxel. But what we have seen is a team that has been able to let him be an offensive hub in the half court. He gets the ball at different levels of the floor, and he's able to initiate the flow of an offense. That's kind of the unique nature of what Dusty May showed last year at Michigan, of what he did and what made them a tough scout to go up against, especially the last half of the season when things started getting clicking. But they return guards. They have brought in Elliot Cadeau. They also have LJ Case, and they also have Roddy Gale coming back. And then they brought in bigs as well, along with Yaxel, with Morez Johnson, Damar, and they have other depth pieces as well. I think the central figure of all that they have is going to be what Yaxel does. I think he's going to be the offensive hub. It's going to be interesting to see how him and Elliot Cadeau work together. But the central figure, I think, is going to be Yaxel. He's uber talented. Now he's jumping onto the big stage. I'm curious to see as to how that progression looks stepping up in level, going to Michigan in the Big Ten. But I think he's got enough pieces around him as to where the focus isn't necessarily going to be on him, and he's going to be able to kind of come along at his own pace. Hitting his stride as they get into the Big Ten season and seeing, kind of how they utilize him. He's so unique as a player. I'm very interested to see how they utilize him on the basketball floor and bring out the most of him.
Yeah. I don't know if y'all can see behind me, but as we continue to introduce ourselves, or myself, this is North Texas. I went to North Texas. That's Grant McCasland right there, and that team that made the NCAA tournament and beat Purdue back in 2021. Gosh, long time ago. But North Texas has had its hands full with Yaxel Lindenberg the past 2-3 years, and it has been very annoying. But because that North Texas UAB rivalry, since Andy Kennedy has gotten there, has been really fun. Now, obviously, Ross Hodge is gone, which we'll talk about later. But yes, Yaxel is very, very impressive player, just really physical. I'm not sure how many people saw North Texas last year in terms of Aaron Scott was a guy that now, or 2 years ago, Aaron Scott, before he went to St. John's, was a guy who people were like, oh, does he have NBA draft buzz? And then he played Axel Lindenberg, and it's like there's just a difference in physicality and like how it plays, and so he's always been on my radar. Very, very impressive player. I'm excited to see what he can do at Michigan. My last player here is I'm going to go back to Texas, and I'm going to pull Lamar Wilkerson, who's headed to Indiana, who averaged 20.5 points per game last year at Sam Houston. One of the best shooters in the country going into this year, at least in terms of expectations and returning production. 44.5% from three on 245 attempts last year. And I remember, like I said, doing this year over year, covering Sam Houston and seeing Lamar Wilkerson like work his way up, like go from 6 points per game to 13 points to 20 points per game last year. And that's ultimately what you want to see from the transfer portal in terms of guys building their way up at these, mid-major, low majors, and boom, you have your shot. Now you're at Indiana. And just seeing him play, and honestly seeing him do this against a lot of teams, because Sam Houston earlier in his career and throughout his career has been kind of defense oriented, to where he's had to play defense. So I'm not worried about that in Indiana. And then he's going to shoot the lights out. And obviously he has a lot of talent around him to where the pressure is off of him. This coming season, he's not going to have to average 20 points per game. He's probably not even going to have to average 16, 15 points per game. Like if he can just come in and be that knockdown shooter as an off-ball guard, if he can average 11, 12 points per game on 42, 43% from three, you're looking at a huge, huge boost for this Indiana team, because we already know with DeVries and Bailey what they have in what they added in the portal from West Virginia and Davidson. But Wilkerson is that floor spacer I think they need on this team, and I'm really excited to see what he can do making the move from Sam Houston.
I agree with you. I think the shooting that he brings is going to be necessary in what Indiana's looking to do this year with the roster that they put together.
All right. Do you have another one, or we want to jump to coaches?
Yeah, man, I got two more.
Go ahead.
And then we'll jump into the coaches.
Go ahead.
So the first one, Silas Demery, going from Georgia to UConn. UConn coming off of back-to-back national championships last year, first round NCAA tournament. I think they kind of revamped their roster. They got back to where they found success at. Silas Demery, he's a calm, cool, and collected lead guard. He averaged 13 a game last year, 3 assists, and 1.7 steals. What he really brings is on the defensive side of the floor. He's one of the better perimeter defenders out there in the country. He was in the SEC last year as well. He's a big-bodied guard. Obviously, you look at the UConn teams of the past, Tristan Newton and all that. They had a big body at the point of attack. Dan Hurley seemed to appreciate that, and that's when their teams were at the best. Silas Demery, big 6'5", strong, put together. His dad played some professional football and all that in his past, so he's just wired in a competitive way. The numbers, the counting stats might not pop, but what he brings, his presence, I feel like is going to be huge for this UConn team, who is, being looked at as a top 5 or 10 team again this season, kind of getting back to the back-to-back championship type days. They revamped the roster. They brought a lot of physicality in there. There's some shooting and all that as well. But I think Silas Demery, the transfer from Georgia, is going to be a very intriguing piece to see how he kind of brings everything together and how they do this year.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think you make a good point in terms of the bigger guards, like you said, with Newton, Steph Castle, another big guard. Like I think you would pair him with Ball and Caravan, and I think it makes a lot of sense on paper. I miss a UConn team that, as much as they struggled last year, still pushed Florida to the wire in that game and was very, very close to an upset to where Florida would not be the national champions. Now, Florida got pushed a couple times to the brink and ended up working out. But
and then Walter Clayton happened.
Yeah, and then Walter Clayton happens, and that's kind of the difference. That it was something.
He had a heck of a year.
But that's what, UConn wants to get back to, I think, being physical. You have Reed still, coming back here after averaging 1.6 blocks per game. I think just the overall defensive physicality is big for them, and I think that's what they get back to this year.
For sure. And then my last one, it's a little bit more unique. St. John's as a whole. There's a lot of stuff happening there. You have Rick Pitino, who comes in saying, he's no longer recruiting high school kids. Going heavy in the transfer portal. They're projected to have like 4 starters this year coming from the transfer portal. You have the Ian Jackson of the world, Bryce Hopkins coming from Providence.
Providence. Yeah.
You have Isaiah Sellers from Stanford. You have Josan Sannon from Arizona State, and a host of other players as well. Rick Pitino had a really good year last year. He spent a majority of the year in the top 15, top 10 of the season. Went through a push to the Big East, and then they're coming back this year with expectations. They have a host of talent. They have guys that have seen success in college already, and they pieced together a team that'll make things interesting. There's a lot of talk this offseason about Rick Pitino and how he is as a coach and the longevity he has continuing to remain there. And I'm going to be curious to see what it looks like. Can you sustain a top 5 type team with, an entirely new starting lineup around Zuby Ejiofor on that? But yeah, so kind of with the transfer market, I'm looking at St. John's. I want to see what that looks like, with no point guards being a thing anymore and with not recruiting high school kids and all the stuff that Rick Pitino's kind of said this offseason, the spotlight that's been on him, the success that he had last year, growing into what it looks like this season. I'm eager to see what the St. John's teams looks like with the transfers they have coming in.
Yeah, we'll get to our like preseason rankings probably in like October or something. I'm interested where we end up like, or where you and I end up like ranking St. John's, because in my head, obviously I think everyone has them as like a top 5, top 6, or somewhere in that range, top 5 team. But yeah, there are just so many portal players here, and I love Ian Jackson in terms of a prospect, and then what he was able to do at North Carolina. They had Dylan Mitchell, Sanone, like Isaiah Sellers from Stanford. So, a lot of talent here. I'm going to give myself a little bit of grace in terms of a month, in terms of not trying to rank them right now in my head. But it is a very interesting team, for sure. All right, let's wrap this up. Favorite coaching hires. Everything's positive on this first podcast here. We won't start criticizing anybody or saying what's bad yet, but favorite coaching hires. Like I said, I covered Ross Hodge at North Texas. I covered Grant McCasland at North Texas. So I had confidence that Grant McCasland was going to work out because he is just an incredible person, and I've seen him in person. Ross Hodge, for those who don't know, maybe we could send this to some West Virginia people. The defensive identity that he gets, he was kind of the backbone for those North Texas teams that won all those conference championships, even with Grant McCasland as the head coach. Like, he was the defensive backbone. He's the guy who Grant McCasland will and would repeatedly credit for those seasons in terms of their defensive success, being one of the best defenses in the country year over year. I think that translates immediately in a Big 12 where we know defense is very, very important, and the best teams usually play great defense. I like what Ross Hodge has in terms of adding Brennan Laurent from North Texas, bringing him with them. When you watched UNT play last year, he was clearly a high major guy, great athlete, 12 points per game last year. And then they added Eaglestaff, Tyson Eaglestaff from North Dakota. So that's their kind of big portal get there. So I like the core. I'm not saying it's going to work magic year one in terms of, being a top half team in the Big 12, but I think they should be competitive because of the defense right away. So that's my Ross Hodge pitch for the West Virginia fans that maybe still aren't sure about what exactly they're getting, because it was kind of a short runway for him. He was with McCasland and then 2 years on his own, very good years, but only 2 years, and now he's at West Virginia. So Ross Hodge to West Virginia will be my first one.
I'm really looking forward to seeing what Ben McCollum was able to do at Iowa. He's had nothing but success as a head coach. Northwest Missouri, 4 D2 national championships. He's got a career 395 and 91 percentage in the D2 ranks. That's 81% of the games that he played in, he won as a D2 coach. Comes in last year 1 in his D1 school, Drake, 31-4, makes the NCAA tournament. And he's bringing along with him his point guard. Tracking Ben McCollum teams in the past, they've all been led by point guards. You look at Bennett Sturts, what he has this coming up year. Now he's on NBA draft boards. You're looking at mock drafts. You're seeing him, some of them even in a lottery type situation. So McCollum has his point guard in place that he kind of centers his team around, and he's had a track record of success with what he's done. Bennett Sturts, last year he was the league player of the year. He averaged 19 points and 5.7 assists per game in high major games last year, 20 points, 6.6 assists as well. So I'm just kind of eager to see what that transition looks like. Ben McCollum, hard-nosed guy, Again, defensive minded, like you said, very meticulous on the offensive end as well. And then you had the offseason clip that came out of him hooping against Cooper DeJean when they came back to Iowa, getting a little between the legs, the tween step back, and all that type of stuff too. So, all that aside, I'm curious to see what Ben McCollum looks like at the high major level. He's had success everywhere he's been. Very meticulous, very very focused. On what he's doing on the little things and the little details. He's got a roster that he likes. He's got a roster of players that he kind of built through the transfer portal and was able to carry over with him continuity from Drake, adding pieces from the transfer portal in there as well. So Ben McCollum's the one that I want to have my eyes on also, to where if it clicks, they could have a nice little season in Iowa.
Yeah, like you said, that the clip of him hooping against Cooper DeJean is all I needed to see. And when you have Bennett Sturts, like you said, I mean, last year, if he kind of had an option of coming out last year, even there were people talking about him. Now he would have, been a second round pick most likely and whatnot. So him making this move is the right decision. But he's been on boards, for he has some hype for him going into this year, and I'm excited to see it. My second pick is going to be Jai Lucas at Miami. Now, the floor for Miami. Now he's inheriting a program that just went 3-17 in conference, 7-24 overall, ranked 193rd in KenPom last year. Like anywhere is up, right? Like there's nowhere you can go but up here. But I think the talent acquisition part of Jai Lucas is ultimately what you're betting on here, and that is a great bet if you're Miami. Not only because Lucas can recruit, but it's, Miami financially should be able to go get some of these top guys if they are backing their head coach the way that they should be. Shelton Henderson comes with them. Obviously, there's a relationship there. Is it their his uncle, right?
So Shelton Henderson played for the John Lucas AAU program, which is Jay's dad.
Thank you. I
But
couldn't remember the exact.
Out of Houston and everything. Obviously, he recruited him to Duke and then followed him from Duke when he went to.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember the exact connection, but yes, there's a connection with Henderson. They get him there, and then the portal. I mean, you add a bunch of really good talent here in terms of Ernest Uday, senior from TCU, Trey Donaldson, senior from Michigan, Malik Reynow, senior from Indiana. So you already see the talent acquisition part for Lucas. We'll see what it looks like in terms of in games and what he's able to do. But I just think you are upgrading so significantly in the ACC, where talent acquisition is not something that is a foregone conclusion outside of Duke. Usually, like Duke, Louisville, all right, who else is going to have players? We could talk about Will Wade later, but like Will Wade and Jai Lucas, now you have them in the conference that are going to consistently acquire talent at a high level. And I think that's a huge deal for Miami.
No, for sure. A lot of eyes are going to be on him. He's a quick riser within the industry. Going Texas, Kentucky to Duke. He's had success everywhere he's been. He's been able to, and then going through Duke practices, going to see what they did. John Shire put a lot on him this past season in running practices and setting things up and having a voice, a very loud voice within both the huddle, the locker room, and all that type of stuff as well. So he's somebody that's been groomed to be a head coach. He's still young, but his pedigree is high. There's expectations of success that comes with it too. So he's somebody that's been on an upward trajectory for a while now.
All right. Do you have one more?
No, that's
well, I wanted to ask you about you took a picture with Will Wade.
Sure.
So we need the story of how Will is doing over there. I did cover Will Wade his last year at LSU, so that's my relationship with him. But have not seen him in person since then. So I'm glad you were able to make your way over there and talk to him.
Yeah, sure. So I went over to state, hung out with him for a while. Got to spend a decent amount of time with him. Within that time, saw practice. As well, and there's a ton of energy. The vibes are super high over there. There's a lot of expectation. They only returned one player from last year's team. NC State does, and they're implementing a new system that kind of fits with what they have going. I mean, Darion Williams, I guess, is the bell cow that they brought in, Texas Tech, all Big 12 performer this past season. So that there's a lot of expectations around them, but there's a lot of other guys that they're bringing in as well, and trying to put in this new system, this fast-paced type of system. looking through the practices, lots of skill work was happening, but even more so than that, just the energy. There's an unbelievable energy within the entire facility when it comes to what they had going on, when it came to the players buying in, when it came to even the managers and all that type of stuff. There's just a palpable energy within the building there too, and it's going to be something to see. I mean, it's NC State's 2 years removed from a Final Four.
Yeah.
They only returned one player right now from the roster. Will Wade was a massive name after what he was able to do at McNeese State these past 2 years. He was a massive name in the coaching carousel this past offseason. NC State was able to get it done, bring him in, and to kind of see what they have. There's some quiet expectations surrounding the program, and within the building, there's some very loud expectations as to what it is that they're seeing, what it is that they have, and the excitement surrounding the roster they were able to put together, but also kind of as they start to implement this new stuff, implement these new players, the excitement surrounding how quickly they're adapting and moving forward as well. So, it was a fun time. It was a good day to be able to spend with seeing what they have going on and everything. But I'm going to be very intrigued to see what NC State does put on the floor because it was a good day.
I'm just glad Will is in a good mood because once the season starts, I feel like I've never seen him in a now he's a great like interview. He's really like smart and obviously like really good to talk to and stuff. But in practice settings, yeah, he's about like I said, I've covered Graham McCaslin, Ross Hodge, and Will Wade. And now I'm Matt McMahon over here at LSU. Will Wade they're all intense, but like Will Wade is the most like he's gonna get into your face and like really let you know what's happening here during the season. So I don't know if we've reached that point yet on September 9th, but I'll never forget when LSU played Nichols in a exhibition or scrimmage, and I went to practice the next day. You would have thought they lost that game. You would have thought they
Yeah,
lost.
no, Will's great, and I'll tell you the one thing too. Just speaking with people around the program, speaking with, knowing Will for a decade or so now, um, the people who he coached all have great things to say about him. They all have continued relationships with him. Even if you look at his staff right now, he has coaches' kids on his staff and everything too. So
That's
guys
cool.
who are successful coaches send their kids to be able to coach with Will Wade and all that type of stuff. His relationships that he builds are very real
Yeah.
within the people within his program and within his building and stuff too. That's something I've really noticed about him over the past while.
Yeah. Well, Jamie, there's our first episode of Dimes, man. I enjoyed it. We will, like I said, this is a good just get our feet wet episode, get to talk about everybody we like and all the players, all the commits, all the coaches we enjoy covering across the country. We'll have a lot of more in-depth stuff and look at, good, bad, ugly, everything like that in the future. But this was a great first episode. So thanks for making it happen. This was good.
Looking forward to it, man.
Yes, sir. Thank y'all for joining us. If you enjoyed the episode, leave a like, comment, and share. Subscribe. This will be YouTube only for at least the first, I don't know, first few months, first couple months till we get the audio side figured out. But yeah, thank y'all for joining us, and we will talk to y'all later.